Happy Saturday, y'all. Good morning. I know I'm a little fluffed up today for a Saturday. I have I'm going to be participating in something via Zoom in a professional manner. So I am dressed professionally this morning. So I'm going to start sharing with people and tagging people and inviting people to come join me this morning as I do a recap of what we covered this week. It was a really great week. We had some amazing leaders in this fight on this week, and we've got some more people. They're going to join us next week in Spanish, which I'm kind of excited about. And I hope everybody had a good Friday evening last night with their family and, really had the time to spend with their loved ones, spend some time with the Lord, spend some time, just reflecting on, as challenging as this time is, we actually have a lot to be grateful for. So that's what I keep choosing to focus on at the moment, is everything we have to be grateful for. I'm just tagging people, so bear with me. All right. Okay. Hey, Kathy. Hey, Philip. Glad you're back on. Hey, Matthew. Hey, Rick. Hey, Manita. Hey, Joffrey. So we had a really big week this week. We had Renata, who is a former Department of Juvenile Justice with Seminole County. Hey, Andrew. Oh, my gosh. It's great to see you. Your face. I so love what you guys are doing up in DC, by the way, and I hope you're being well. So Monday we had a friend of mine, Renata. She's also a mission ambassador. She is a former Department of Juvenile Justice. Hey, Greg. Glad you're checking in. Hey, Betty. I'm doing great, by the way, Greg. Really, really great. And then Tuesday we had my dear friend Lindsay on, who is a survivor of human trafficking. She was trafficked by her husband. Wednesday, one of my other mission ambassadors, Daniela Rodriguez, who really is focusing on our Latin community, we talked about debunking a couple of myths. And then Thursday was Dr. Toll, who works with Aspire. And, he blew my mind. I haven't had a chance to go back and listen to his video because I was very busy yesterday, and then I'm on calls and busy again today. But I got to tell you, if you can go back and listen to that conversation we had about trauma and how it affects the brain, I remember parts of it. Oh my gosh. So I'm going to cover what I remember. But okay, here we go. We're going to get started. So some of the myths that Renata and I debunked, I'm going to look over my computer here. We talked about it's only youth at home that are in trouble, like they're having trouble at home. We talked about runaways, and we talked about boys. Boys can't be trafficked. So I'm going to start with that. We actually got the percentage. 30% of children that are trafficked are boys. And when I share that, because we do a lot of work with the DJJ up in Seminole County, when I share that with the young boys, they're like, wait, what? Hang on, nobody's going to traffic me. I can't be trafficked. No one's going to do that to me. And what I say to them is two things. First of all, if you're roofied, you don't have a say in what happens to your body. That's the first thing. And that kind of has them go, like they think trafficking some kind of choice. The second thing is boys a lot of times are recruited for labor trafficking. And I know y'all have seen them, especially like during the spring break, during summer, and during the winter holiday break, is you'll see these kids, hey James, you'll see these kids out carrying tubs of stuff, that stuff from the dollar store, the $5 candy or the $5 candles, and they're being promised some trip. That's where a lot of our young boys are trafficked into, is labor trafficking. And that is labor trafficking. It's because they're, worked 14, 16 hours a day. They're not paid a whole lot of money. They're certainly not paid minimum wage. And they're coerced into it because someone signed a paper saying, yep, you can have my kid during the day. And DCF, we work really closely with DCF, and DCF has said they've actually picked up some of our Florida kids in Texas because they literally take them as traveling salespeople, and they don't get paid minimum wage. They don't get really paid a whole lot, and they're threatened. That's part of trafficking. Okay, so boys can be trafficked. About 36% of the people that are trafficked are young boys. So that debunked that myth. The whole only youth at home, that are in troubled homes, not true. We talked about a family up in Lake Mary that, good family. Both parents work. There was no alcohol abuse. Hey, Craig, no kind of abuse in the home. One of the daughters got caught up in doing some marijuana, got stuck in a home, was taken away from her family, and met up with a future boyfriend that I put in air quotes. And hey, Meryl, she ended up recruiting her sister into trafficking and sadly lost her life. Hey, Melissa. So they came from a really, really great family. And yes, and here's the thing y'all want to know. Traffickers know by what children post on social media and what they share with their friends and what they say on TikTok and what they say on Snapchat. The predators are out there watching your children's feeds, pretending to be other children. And that's the most important thing, hey, Joanna, that we really want to have parents understand is these people are really smart and they know exactly how to recruit your children. And that's why we're having this conversation. I'm going to switch hands now because my hand got tired. Okay. Hey, Maria. So that's what we talked about on Monday and runaways. Yes, runaways are highly at risk. And a lot of times what these recruiters do, what these predators do is they promise your children the world. They send them a bus ticket and the next thing you know, they're gone. Because, you didn't do something that, whatever. You made them do their homework. You made them do chores. You made them do, quote, quote, made them do something. They didn't like it, and so they're running away. Because their friends don't have to do that. Well, you know what? I used to tell my daughter, I'm not your friend's mom. If I was your friend's mom, they'd be doing chores. Sorry, not sorry. That's the thing, too, is our children need boundaries. Our children need guidance. I used to tell my daughter I'm the bumpers in the bowling game of life, and that's what our children need. It doesn't work for us to be their friend. They need us as their parent. Then we can befriend them when they get older. And they still need us, by the way. So that's what we talked about on Monday. Tuesday, my friend Lindsay, who's a survivor of human trafficking, we talked about it only happens in private. Well, that's not the case. She would be sent out a lot. And she knew coming back to the hotels, she knew that people at the hotel saw her. She knows that the people at the front desk, she knows the maintenance people, the housekeeping people all saw her. And they didn't do anything. And that's one of the reasons why we're having this conversation is we want to make sure that you know what to look for so you can actually take an action, so you actually do know what to do. Because you really want to look for, hey, Karen, you want to look for, she's like, I used to come back really messed up because there was a lot of alcohol involved. So if you see someone stumbling, not really in full control of themselves, you can just check in. Are you okay? Do you need anything? Because in that moment, that actually lets them know that someone's noticed them, that they know that something's going on. Hey, Karen, I miss you too. I miss you madly. So that's something that you can look for. Being submissive versus shy. That's another piece. When someone is in a public setting and they're looking down, they're not making any eye contact with anyone. They're not even looking around. Their body energy is in. That's some of the stuff you can look for. And you know what? You want to make that call. You want to call the hotline. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all anonymous. Hey, Ruthie, all anonymous. You can call the hotline, and I'm going to put it in here. It's 888-3737. I'm typing it in as I talk here. 3737-888. That's the hotline number. You can put that number in your phone, and You call it anytime. You can call it anytime, 24 hours a day. It's 100% anonymous. There are people that answer, and we're really lucky here in Central Florida. United Abolitionists mans that hotline 24/7. And so if somebody makes a call and it's for someone here in Florida, they'll be taken care of. Seminole County, they take every single call. Because every single, yeah, I saw that, Karen. She said Arnold Palmer Hospital said the number of child abuse cases have increased substantially. Yeah, they have. And that's what has children run away. Also, because they're leaving sometimes abusive environments, thinking that this other environment's going to be better because these predators promised them the moon. And that's not what they get. So I know, I just broke my heart. I posted that last night, Karen, that Arnold Palmer said the number of child abuse cases have increased. And this is really a great time for us to check in on our neighbors. You know, if you hear yelling, if you hear fighting, if you hear something that just doesn't sound right, and it's not like a loud movie, because we know the difference. I know it's scary, but someone's life's on the line. I have several friends that are victims of domestic abuse. It matters when someone else cares. It matters when someone says, I'm right here for you. You know, it's got to be their choice. That's the other thing, too, that survivors have shared. They've said, hey, look, no one ever really rescued me. I chose to leave. I chose to have myself rescued. And as long as there's a hand waiting for them, they'll take it. And you got to be consistent, and you got to honor your word. Got to keep your promises. It's the other big thing. So that's what we cover with Lindsay. And you know what? Victims aren't chained up physically most of the time. They're chained up emotionally. They're chained up with trauma because they can't leave, because the use of force, fraud, and coercion and threats. So that's why human trafficking is the perfect silent crime, because as a victim, there's so much shame and there's so much guilt and there's so much embarrassment because they're made to think that they chose this life. They're made to think that no one else would want them. So they think they have to stay. Because if you're told something over and over and over and over again, you start to believe it till someone else starts to alter that brain pattern. So they're not chained up literally, they're chained up figuratively, mentally. And they also use threats. You know, I'll hurt your family, I'll hurt your friends. Those are the words they use, and they believe them because they'll hurt other people in front of them. And so you believe. And so you don't leave, you don't go, because you know that they'll make good on that threat. And that's part of what we covered on Tuesday with my friend Lindsay. And that's a lot of times why they can't leave at any time. They can't leave. Because where are they going to go? That's the other big thing. If you don't have a family, if you've left your family and you've been told that your family doesn't love you, or your family's forgotten about you, or your family doesn't care, you're going to start to believe that. And then when you have had enough, you're going to, where am I going to go? That's why you want to call the National Trafficking Hotline. You can give the hotline number to anyone because they're trained to help survivors leave that situation. So that's what we covered on Tuesday. On Wednesday, I talked with Daniela. Daniela is very involved in the Latin community. And what we talked about is, you know, trafficking doesn't affect me or my life. Well, not true. You know, victims of human trafficking, this is personal trauma. The PTSD of someone who's been human trafficked is a completely different level than any other type of PTSD because it's personal trauma. These women and men are abused on a daily basis. These women are raped, hurt 10, 15, 20, 25 times a night, over and over again. It's not just something you get over. Hey, Caroline, that's not just something you get over. So trafficking does affect us because it affects us in our healthcare environment. It affects us in our community. It affects us in our families. It affects us in our businesses. We also talked about fair trade. You can go to fairtrade.net and look at all the companies that don't use human trafficking to make their products and goods. That's how we can vote. That's how we can make a difference, is we can actually vote with our wallet. Hey, Amy. So that's the other thing too about fair trade. So it does affect you, the cost of goods sold. You know what? I would rather pay $10 for a t-shirt made in America by someone who's making a living wage than pay $5 for a t-shirt made by a child in another country, knowing they're being harmed. Ooh, I got 2 Amy's on. Woohoo. Thanks for watching. So we, debunked that myth. And the other myth is, I should just mind my own business. Well, human beings' life's at stake. And every single time we go out and we speak in public, every time we talk about this, someone will come up to us afterwards and say, you know what, when I was younger or a long time ago, I witnessed something and I didn't do anything and I've never forgotten it. Well, that's called regret. And that lives with you for the rest of your life, unless you actually take an action. So that's why we give people actions to take. We tell you what to look for. We educate you so we can empower you so that you can take empowered action. If you see something, you're actually going to do something, and you're going to call the hotline, or you're going to call 911, or you're going to check in on someone. Especially parents. Look, I got to tell you, you are the front line of defense. You're the one that can actually really pay attention to not only what's happening with your, hey, Caroline, oh my gosh, I miss you. Sorry, one of my interns just hopped on. You're the one that can actually make the difference, not only in your child's life, but sometimes with their friends. Not everybody has a great life, a great household. As we know, the increase of child abuse has gone up in this time of sheltering in place. That tells you something. It tells you that families are dealing with things that they're not used to dealing with. And so as parents, we can be that one. We can be that one that shares and educates our children's friends so that they know what might be happening around them, or if there's something happening at their house, you've created a safe place for them to come. You've created a safe place for them to share. Then you can take an action that could actually save their life. So that's what we talked about on Wednesday. The other piece too is, that I'm only one person. Who am I to help? Who am I? Well, you're a human being that cares about other human beings. You do. That's one of our basal experiences, is we actually want to make a difference out in the world. We actually want to make a difference with people. And this is one way you can do it. If you see something, you take an action, and you do something. You're there for people. You listen to them. Don't try and solve their problems unless they ask, but you just listen. And sometimes just listening can make the biggest difference for someone, because they'll sort it out, and if not, they'll come ask. Okay, and then lastly, Thursday with Dr. Philip Toll. Man, this man is brilliant. I could listen to this guy talk all day long, because he talks about the brain science of trauma and what he shared. Hey, Stephanie. What he shared, again, I have to go back and re-listen to it, but I'm going to share with you what I remember. Because the myth we debunked was, 2 things. One, the prostitution myth. I'm clear, no one, by choice, really by choice, would choose to sell their body. I don't think anyone would choose to do that. And I do mean choice. I'm not talking about survival sex. Because if somebody thinks this is the only way they can survive, then that's not really a choice. If they think that's the only way they can pay their rent or buy food, that's not a choice. It's called survival sex. So I assert all prostitution is human trafficking in some form or another. They may not have a pimp. It may not be controlled that way. But if they're being forced to do something they wouldn't choose to do, that's human trafficking. Now, there are people out there that would argue against me. There are people out there that choose that life. If you go back into their past and their history and maybe see what happens, and seen that moment, they thought, well, this is it. This is the best I can do, or this is it. Then again, that's not really a choice. That is survival sex. So that's one myth we debunked. The other one was about, survivors only return to their traffickers. And we talked about trauma bonding. And again, I invite you to go back to my Thursday night Facebook Live because he explained it way better than about what I'm about to share. So there's 3 parts of our brain. There's the amygdala, which is the survival part of our brain. And that's the fight, flight, or freeze part of our brain. And that's really where the trauma goes to work on. And then you've got the midbrain. And then we talk about this all the time, parents, that our children's prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed yet. It's not really fully developed until their mid-20s. And so that's the impulsive, making immediate decisions. And the thing he described was the moment you're harmed like that, the moment a sexual assault happens, and it happens over and over again, depending on the age. Because remember, the average age of entry is 11 to 14. So if you're 12 years old, your brain's really not fully developed yet. And he said it's like someone sticks a stick in the middle of your bicycle while you're driving. Your brain actually gets stuck in that age, and it gets stuck in that trauma. So that's part of the midbrain and the prefrontal cortex. And the amount of trauma that they're experiencing stays in the brain. And he said it takes anywhere from 2 to 3 years just for the brain to heal from that trauma. Doesn't mean the rest of your body's dealing with whatever the rest of your body's dealing, but with the brain, the neuronal patterns are actually altered. And if you do any kind of research on ACE scores, adverse childhood experiences, that's what you'll find out's very similar. So I would highly recommend you watch Dr. Harris's TED Talk about adverse childhood experiences. Then my friend Christy Lee, who's a unbelievable therapist, very powerful. She's the only therapist they allowed on site during the Pulse tragedy. She just posted something called she just posted something on Facebook, and I shared it about the circle, about the level of childhood trauma and how the correlation between that and people in jail, people in prison. So all of this I'm sharing to educate you. And it doesn't mean you can't discipline your kids. It's not about that. You just got to do the thinking through. And there's a trick that they teach basketball referees. They train them to, when they're going to breathe in, to blow their whistle, to pause for 3 seconds, to really make sure they saw what they saw, that what they saw connects with their brain. As parents, we can do that too. We can take a deep breath in, count to 3, count to 5, excuse ourselves and go, you know what? Mommy is really angry right now. I'll be right back. Because what I'm about to say, I don't want to say. And you can actually remove yourself from the situation. Because we know words can actually harm people. I know sticks and stones may break our bones, but words will never hurt me. It's not the truth. Because our brain takes those words and we play them over and over and over again, and that's how victims stay inside this trauma. Is they're told they don't matter, they're told they're not worthy, and they start to believe it. I'm the only one that'll ever love you. I'm the only one that'll ever take care of you. And they start to believe it, and that's why they stay. And all the trauma to the amygdala, the midbrain, and the prefrontal cortex, all that trauma is, and it's repeated over and over and over again, creates those neuronal patterns, and that's why they stay. That's why victims can't just leave. Because that's one of the questions we get all the time. Well, why don't they just leave? They can't. They literally can't. And it takes 2 to 3 years of building trust and providing hope to make that kind of difference. Thanks, Dawn. I'm just so committed that our community is empowered and educated about this. I just got off the phone with a friend of mine who really didn't fully understand, about trafficking, because I think I posted a couple of days ago about, we're supposed to be sheltering at home. And there are still on my news feed from NCMEC, the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children, still on my news feed, at least 2 to 3 kids a day going missing. Now, a high percentage of them are found, which is awesome. But a lot of them aren't. Where are they going? How are they being recruited? Well, my friends, they're being recruited by people online. We talk about, I don't know how many of you play tennis, but it's the best analogy I can do. Hey, Dawn, hey, Diane, it's the best analogy I can give you. If we all went on the tennis court with Serena Williams, unless you're a professional tennis player, and even then questionable, right? We would be no match for her on the tennis court. Well, that's the environment that we're putting our kids in online without having these kind of conversations with them. These predators, these traffickers, know they're the Serena Williams of manipulating our children. They're the professional player in this match. And that's why having these kind of conversations with our kids is so important. That's why we did these Facebook Lives, is we want you as our parents and our community leaders educated so you can have the conversations with your kids. Yep, it's uncomfortable. Yep, it's weird. I get it. But here's the thing. You're not alone. You're not alone. There's the Facebook Lives I've been doing for the past 2 weeks and the recaps last Saturday and today that you can share and watch with your kids. You can actually say, thanks, Philip. My pleasure. Thanks for being on so consistently. You can actually say, look, honey, I know this is a weird conversation, but what do you know about human trafficking? What have you heard? What do you think it is? And then together you can watch these videos, or you can go online, just in your Google, just type in human trafficking, and you'll see all kinds of things that come up. There's dozens of organizations around the country that not only want your help, but need your help. We're one of dozens. We're one of about a handful that do human trafficking prevention education. And we do it because we're committed, because we know we have friends that are survivors and warriors for human trafficking. We also know what they deal with on a daily basis. I'm not okay with more and more children being subjected to that. I want our kids to have a life that they love and a life that they choose. Not based on survival, but based on thriving. And that's why we have these conversations. That's why we're providing this information for you. So you can take it, you can learn, you can become knowledgeable, and then you can go out and share with your communities. You can share with your neighbors, you can share with your friends. You gotta get, when I tell people what I do, because I'll say, well, I do human trafficking, and I don't get out the awareness and education part before they start to react. I'm like, hang on, take a deep breath. We do prevention education for a reason, because we're out to prevent it. And we partner with all the organizations that do, housing and care and wraparound care. Those are some of you met some of the people we tap into, United Abolitionists, Connie Rose over in Tampa with Victims to Survivors, because we work together to create a great community. Now, before I go this morning, I want to let you know, we're going to do this series one more time, but in Spanish next week. Daniela Rodriguez, who's one of our mission ambassadors and is bilingual, we're going to have conversations with 4 other people, and we're going to debunk some similar myths in Spanish. So I invite you to that. We're going to post that later on today or tomorrow so you can share. On Monday, we're going to have Jose Ramirez, who works with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, also works very closely with the FBI task force, was very involved with all the pre-work before the Super Bowl down in Miami. Really brilliant guy, very knowledgeable. Then on Tuesday, we're going to talk to Tomas Lars again, because he does speak Spanish. He's going to talk about survivors and the important work there. And then we're going to talk to Joe Lopez, who is running for Orange County Sheriff's, and he's got 20 plus years in law enforcement at the local level. And then lastly, on Thursday, we're going to talk with Katie Goodcombe Morales and her husband, Jonathan. They have a safe house down in the Dominican Republic. And so we're going to debunk all those myths that come along sometimes in the Latin culture, because every culture has their own thing they deal with, and we're going to address that for the Latin culture. So thank you all so much for being with me this morning. Thank you for supporting us these past couple of weeks on our Facebook Lives. Please share. The more people we educate, the more lives we save. And then next Saturday, same time, Christy Lee, who is a therapist, as I shared with you, and then Tammy Workman, we're both going to talk about how to manage stress during this time. Christy posted an article last night that I highly recommend you reading, because I'm noticing more and more people are getting stressed out People are sharing things on social media, whether you agree with them or whether you don't. It causes a level of stress. So I don't spend a whole lot of time on social media, other than to do this kind of thing. I'll scroll through and then I keep stepping because I'll find myself getting upset. I'm like, Jan, just step away, just walk away. So that's what I'm doing. So I invite you to do the same thing. This is Easter weekend. So, maybe take the rest of the afternoon and put your phone down, turn the TV off, and, go take a walk outside. It's beautiful out. Take a moment and journal or read a book you haven't read in a while. Just take some time for you. That's one of the best things you can do during this stressful time. Make a cup of chamomile tea and just relax because you deserve it. This is unprecedented time in our history. And the more we stay together and the more we alter our experience of the occurring, of how the world's going, the bigger difference we can make when we come out of this. Thank you, Kathy. Oh my God, thank you, Kathy. Thank you for making a difference for her. That's why we do this. You got educated, you took an action. You have no idea the difference that makes for her and for all of us. So y'all have a really wonderful and blessed holiday weekend. Please take a moment to say a prayer for our nation, for those in bondage, and for each other. Know that I love you and appreciate you so much. And we'll see you next week. Bye.